My wife secretly drained my savings to fund her sister's wedding, so I let the bank tell her the truth. I never imagined that the biggest betrayal of my life would begin with a wedding I wasn't even excited about. My name's Ryan. I'm 34, work as a financial analyst, and until 6 months ago, I believed I had what most people spend their lives chasing: a stable marriage, a comfortable home, and a partner I trusted enough to build a future with. My wife, Melissa, and I had been married for 5 years. We weren't rich, not even close, but we were careful. Every paycheck, we'd put money into separate personal accounts and another portion into a joint savings account. That account had one purpose: buying our forever home. We'd skipped vacations. We drove the same old sedan for almost 8 years. We cooked at home instead of eating out. Whenever friends teased us for being boring adults, Melissa would laugh and squeeze my hand. One day, she'd say, "They'll wish they'd saved like us." Those memories still make me sick, because every smile now feels rehearsed. Looking back, I don't know when she stopped being my partner and started treating me like her personal ATM. The first warning sign came 3 months before her younger sister Ashley's wedding. Ashley had expensive taste despite never holding a job for more than a year. She wanted a luxury venue, a designer dress, fresh flowers imported from another country, a 5-tier cake, live musicians, professional fireworks. Every time Melissa came home from helping her sister plan the wedding, she'd complain, "They're over budget again. I don't know why Ashley keeps changing everything. Dad refuses to pay another dollar." I usually just nodded. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Or so I thought. One Friday evening, Melissa sat beside me on the couch. "Can I ask something?" "Sure. If Ashley really gets stuck, would you be okay lending her some money?" I looked at her. "How much?" "I don't know. Maybe 5,000. I laughed. "I thought you were going to ask for 500. She didn't laugh back. "I just don't want her wedding ruined." I shook my head. "We've spent 5 years building that savings account. It's temporary." "No. Ryan, no." Her expression changed almost instantly. Not angry, disappointed, like I'd failed some secret test. "It's family, and our future is family too." She sighed dramatically before dropping the subject. At least I thought she had. Over the next few weeks, she brought it up constantly. Ashley's florist canceled. They need another deposit. The venue raised prices. My parents are stressed. Every conversation somehow ended with money. Every answer from me stayed the same: no. Eventually she stopped asking. That should have made me feel relieved. Instead, it made me nervous. Melissa had never given up that easily. One Saturday morning, I logged into our online banking to schedule our monthly savings transfer. The balance looked wrong. I blinked, refreshed the page, then refreshed it again. The number stayed exactly the same. I frowned. We should have had just over $96,000. Instead, the account showed a little over $84,000. My stomach tightened. $12,000. Gone. Maybe I was looking at the wrong account. I checked again. No. Same account. Same number. I opened the transaction history. There it was. For withdrawals: $3,000, $2,500, $4,000, $2,500. All within 6 weeks. All marked as authorized online transfers. My first thought wasn't that Melissa had taken it. It was that someone had hacked us. I immediately called the bank. After 20 minutes of security questions, the representative reviewed the account. "Sir, these transfers were completed using your registered online banking credentials. Could they be fraudulent? They appear to have been authenticated successfully." My heart pounded. "Can you tell me where the money went?" "I'm sorry, I can't disclose the destination account until a fraud investigation is opened." Fraud investigation. The words echoed in my head. When Melissa got home that evening, I asked as casually as I could, "Hey, have you noticed anything strange with our savings account?" She barely looked up from her phone. "No, I think we're missing money." She froze. Only for a second. "But I noticed." "What do you mean?" "About 12,000. She shrugged. "Maybe you miscalculated." "I don't think I did." She walked into the kitchen. "You handle the finances." That answer bothered me more than it should have. Normally, Melissa wanted updates on everything. This time, nothing. Not even concern. That night, after she fell asleep, I stayed awake staring at the ceiling. My instincts kept screaming that something wasn't right. The next morning, I checked the account again. Another transfer. $1,000. Pending. Someone was still moving money. I canceled the transfer immediately. Then I changed every password connected to our banking. Email, phone authentication, everything. An hour later my phone rang. Melissa. Ryan. Yeah. Did you change the bank password? I stayed silent. Why? I was trying to log in. There it was. The confession she didn't realize she'd made. You were? Yeah. Why? A pause. I just wanted to check the balance. You've never checked the balance. Silence. Then, you don't trust me? I almost laughed. Instead I answered quietly. I'm starting to wonder if I should. She hung up. When I got home that evening, she was furious. So now you're locking me out of our own account? I changed the password because money keeps disappearing. You think I stole it? I didn't say that. You implied it. I asked a question. You always make me feel like a criminal. That sentence hit me strangely. People usually deny stealing. Melissa skipped straight to accusing me of accusing her. It felt rehearsed. She stormed upstairs and slammed the bedroom door. For the next 3 days, she barely spoke to me. Then, as suddenly as the argument had started, she became sweet again. My favorite dinners. Random hugs. Coffee waiting for me every morning. Compliments she hadn't given me in months. It felt less like love and more like damage control. That's when I decided I needed answers before confronting her again. Monday afternoon, I took a long lunch break and drove to our bank branch. The manager greeted me politely and led me into a private office. I'd like copies of every transfer from our joint savings over the last 3 months. She verified my identity before printing several pages. As she handed them over, something caught my eye. Every withdrawal had been sent to the exact same account. Same account number. Same recipient. The manager pointed to one line. Would you like me to explain anything? I swallowed. Can you tell me whose account this is? She hesitated. I'm afraid privacy laws prevent me from identifying another customer. Of course. I thanked her anyway and walked back to my car. Before starting the engine, I spread the papers across the passenger seat. There had to be a clue. And then, I noticed something tiny. Each transfer included a payment reference. The first one read, wedding deposit. The second, venue balance. The third, Ashley Flowers. My hands went cold. Ashley, Melissa's sister. I read the words again. And again, there was no misunderstanding anymore. No hacker. No mistake. Someone had been using our savings to pay for Ashley's dream wedding. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. But even then, I still didn't know one thing. Had Melissa convinced herself I'd eventually forgive her? Or had she never intended for me to find out at all? As I sat in the parking lot trying to steady my breathing, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Melissa. Don't forget we're having dinner with my parents tonight. Ashley has some exciting wedding news to share. For the first time in our marriage. I wasn't planning to stay quiet.
I stared at Melissa's text for a full minute before replying. I'll be there. That was it. No argument. No accusations. No hint that I knew anything. If Melissa had stolen our savings, the last thing I wanted was to tip her off before I understood exactly how much had been taken, and whether anyone else was involved. By the time I pulled into her parents' driveway that evening, I'd made one decision. I wasn't confronting anyone. Not yet. People reveal far more when they think they're winning. The house was buzzing with excitement. Through the front window I could already see Ashley twirling around the living room with a tablet in her hands while Melissa's parents clapped like she'd just won the lottery. The moment I walked in, Ashley ran over. Ryan. Perfect timing. She shoved the tablet into my hands before I even had a chance to take off my jacket. Look at the upgraded reception layout. The screen showed a ballroom I'd never seen before. Crystal chandeliers. Marble dance floor. Gold-trimmed tables. It looked more like a celebrity wedding than something any of us could reasonably afford. Melissa's father grinned proudly. Isn't it incredible? It is, I admitted. Ashley beamed. We upgraded the venue. Melissa smiled from across the room. I knew you'd love it. Love it? I was mentally calculating how many thousands of dollars those upgrades probably cost. Dinner started a few minutes later. For most of the meal, the conversation revolved around centerpieces, flower arrangements, photographers, desserts, and honeymoon destinations. Every new detail sounded more expensive than the last. Eventually Ashley raised her glass. "I just want to thank everyone who's helped make my dream wedding possible." Everyone smiled. Melissa reached over and squeezed my hand under the table. I pulled mine away. She looked surprised but quickly recovered. Ashley continued. "I know weddings are stressful, but family always comes through." Her mother nodded proudly. "That's what family is for." Something about the way they looked at Melissa made my stomach tighten. Not one of them looked worried about money anymore. Not one. 3 weeks earlier Melissa had claimed everyone was panicking over the budget. Now they acted as if financial problems had magically disappeared. Almost as if someone had already solved them. After dessert, Ashley insisted on showing everyone the latest decorations she'd ordered online. As everyone crowded around her laptop, I quietly stepped into the hallway. Melissa followed less than 30 seconds later. "You've been acting weird." "Have I?" "You barely said anything." "I was listening." She crossed her arms. "Are you still upset about the bank account?" "I've been thinking about it." "Thinking what?" "I think someone knows more than they're admitting." For the first time all evening, genuine fear flashed across her face. Only for a second. Then it disappeared. "You really think someone stole from us?" "I do." She swallowed. "That's awful. Awful. Not impossible. Not shocking. Just awful." I nodded slowly. "It is." Before she could say anything else, Ashley called us back into the living room. The conversation moved on, but I couldn't stop watching Melissa. She barely touched her dessert. She kept checking her phone. Every few minutes she'd glance toward me like she was trying to read my face. She knew something. The only question was how much. The next morning, after Melissa left for work, I called the bank again. This time I asked to speak directly with the fraud department. The investigator assigned to my case introduced himself as Daniel. After verifying my identity, he asked a question that caught me off guard. "Mr. Carter, does anyone besides you have authorized access to the account?" "My wife." "Has she acknowledged making these transfers?" "No." "Has she denied making them?" "Not exactly." He paused. "If your wife is a joint account holder, these withdrawals may technically be authorized. Depending on how the account was set up." I closed my eyes. So she could legally empty the account? Potentially, yes. That wasn't what I wanted to hear. But, he continued, if funds were transferred under deception, coercion, forged instructions, or violated another agreement, that's a different matter. Different matter. Those 2 words stayed with me. Daniel continued. I'd recommend collecting every financial record before confronting anyone. Exactly what I planned to do. Over the next week, I became someone I barely recognized. I smiled. I laughed. I acted like everything was normal. Melissa seemed to relax. She stopped watching me so carefully. She even began talking about buying a house again. Ironically, every conversation about our future was financed by money she'd secretly taken from that very future. One Thursday night she casually mentioned something that made my ears perk up. Ashley finally paid the wedding planner. Oh. Yeah. She's so relieved. Interesting. According to Ashley, she couldn't afford the planner. Now suddenly she could. I kept my expression neutral. That's good. Melissa smiled. I told you everything would work out. She had no idea how true that sentence would become. Just not in the way she expected. Saturday afternoon I decided to do something I'd never done before. I visited the wedding venue. Not to cause a scene. just to ask a few questions. Inside, a receptionist greeted me warmly. "Can I help you?" "I'm with Ashley Bennett's wedding." "Oh. Congratulations. I'm actually helping organize payments." She smiled. "The balance has already been taken care of." My pulse quickened. "It has?" "Yes." "When?" She checked her computer. "Several payments over the last 2 months." "Several." "Exactly matching the transfers from our savings account." I thanked her and left. Now I had independent confirmation. The money hadn't disappeared into thin air. It had built Ashley's fairy tale wedding. Piece by expensive piece. That night, I couldn't sleep. Instead, I opened our old photo albums. 5 years of memories. Our honeymoon. Our first apartment. The day we opened that savings account together. Melissa had actually framed the first deposit receipt. She'd written underneath it, "For our forever home." I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was unbelievable. The woman who'd written those words had either disappeared, or had never existed. 2 days later, another surprise arrived. I came home from work to find Melissa measuring the living room. "What are you doing?" She smiled brightly. "I was thinking after Ashley's wedding we should renovate." "Renovate?" "New flooring. Maybe a bigger kitchen." "With what money?" She froze. Then forced a laugh. "We'll save." I looked straight into her eyes. "Will we?" She looked away first. The final piece of the puzzle arrived completely by accident. Wednesday morning my phone buzzed while I was in a meeting. Unknown number. I ignored it. A voicemail appeared minutes later. When I listened after work, my blood ran cold. "Hi, Melissa. This is Karen from Elegant Moments Weddings. Just calling to let you know the final payment cleared successfully. Ashley is officially paid in full. We can't wait to see you both next Saturday. Melissa." Not Ashley. Melissa had been handling the payments personally. The voicemail had reached me because she'd accidentally listed my phone number as the contact. I listened 3 more times. There was no misunderstanding. No guessing. No assumptions. Melissa hadn't simply helped. She had orchestrated the entire thing. She was the one paying vendors. She was the one moving money. She was the one making sure her sister got the wedding she'd always wanted. With my savings. I forwarded the voicemail to a secure folder and backed it up in 3 different places. Then I sat in my car outside our house for nearly 20 minutes. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger is loud. This was something quieter. Colder. The kind of calm that comes after realizing there's no relationship left to save. When I finally walked inside, Melissa was smiling at the kitchen counter. "I have great news." "Oh?" "The wedding's completely paid for." I nodded slowly. "I'm sure it is." She kissed my cheek. I knew everything would work out. I smiled back for the first time in weeks. It wasn't the smile of a husband. It was the smile of someone who had finally collected every piece of evidence he needed. Melissa mistook my silence for forgiveness. She had no idea that I wasn't planning an argument anymore. I was planning something much simpler. I was going to let the people she'd trusted with all those secret payments tell the truth for me. And when the wedding day arrived, the first person to expose her wouldn't be me. It would be the bank. The strange thing about betrayal is that, after a while, the anger burns itself out. What replaces it is clarity. For nearly a week, I acted like nothing had changed. I kissed Melissa goodbye before work. I asked about the wedding plans. I even helped carry a few boxes of decorations into our garage because Ashley's apartment was too small. Every smile I gave her bought me more information. She had become careless. She no longer deleted emails after reading them. Vendor receipts were left on the kitchen counter. One afternoon I noticed a binder labeled wedding budget sitting on the dining table. Normally, I would have ignored it. This time, I opened it. Inside were dozens of invoices. The venue. The florist. The photographer. The caterer. Every invoice had one thing in common. Paid by Melissa Carter. Not Ashley. Not Ashley's fiancée. Melissa. I carefully photographed every page with my phone before putting the binder back exactly where I'd found it. That night, Melissa came home humming. "You seem happy," I said. "I am. Everything ready?" She smiled proudly. "Almost. Ashley keeps saying this couldn't have happened without me." I looked at her. I believe her. She laughed, assuming I meant it as a compliment. I meant every word. The next morning, I met Daniel, the fraud investigator from the bank, in person. He spread copies of our account statements across a conference table. "I've reviewed the transfers," he said. "They all originated from the same login credentials." I figured. He looked at me carefully. "Mr. Carter, are you requesting that we proceed with a formal investigation?" That question carried weight. Once I answered yes, there would be no pretending none of this had happened. I thought about Melissa. About the promises we'd made. About the framed receipt she'd once called the beginning of our forever home. Then I remembered the payment references. Wedding deposit. Ashley flowers. I took a slow breath. Yes. Daniel nodded. "We'll begin immediately." He slid another document toward me. "One more thing." I looked down. Because the withdrawals exceeded a certain amount, the bank would contact every receiving business to verify the payments and their authorization. I looked back up. "So the vendors will be contacted?" "Yes." "And the receiving account holder?" "Yes." I simply nodded. Exactly what I'd hoped. I wasn't exposing Melissa. The bank was following procedure. That afternoon, I met with a divorce attorney. Walking into her office felt surreal. 6 months earlier I'd been browsing home listings. Now I was discussing asset protection. After hearing everything, she leaned back in her chair. "You've done the right thing by gathering documentation before confronting your wife. I didn't want this." "I know." She folded her hands. "But if what you've shown me is accurate, you need to protect yourself financially starting today." She handed me a checklist. Open a new personal account. Redirect future paychecks. Freeze joint credit cards where legally allowed. Document every shared asset. Don't destroy evidence. Don't argue through text. Most importantly, don't warn her. I followed every instruction before the day was over. Melissa noticed the first change 2 days later. "Why didn't your paycheck go into the joint account?" I shrugged. "My company updated payroll." "Oh." She accepted the answer surprisingly easily. She probably assumed she'd have another chance to move the money later. She wouldn't. 3 days before the wedding, Ashley invited everyone to the rehearsal dinner. The atmosphere was almost festive. Her fiancé, Mark, thanked everyone for supporting them. Then Ashley stood up with tears in her eyes. "I especially want to thank my sister." Everyone applauded. Melissa smiled modestly. Ashley continued. "Without her generosity, none of this would have been possible." The room erupted into applause again. Melissa looked embarrassed. Her mother wiped away a tear. Only I understood what Ashley had accidentally admitted. Not one person asked where Melissa had found tens of thousands of dollars. Not one. Either they never cared, or they already knew. When we got home that night, Melissa wrapped her arms around me. "Can you believe tomorrow's finally here?" "Yeah. I'm so relieved." "Why?" "Because after the wedding, everything can go back to normal." I almost asked, normal for who? Instead, I smiled. "It definitely won't." She laughed, assuming I was joking. Friday morning, my phone rang while I was making coffee. It was Daniel. "Mr. Carter?" "Yes. Our verification process has begun." "Already?" "Yes." He sounded professional, but there was something else in his voice. Concern. "I should let you know." "What?" "Some of the vendors were surprised when contacted." "Surprised?" "They believed the payments came directly from your wife's personal funds." I let that sink in. So Melissa told them it was her money. That's the impression we're getting. I thanked him and ended the call. One lie had now become many. The wedding was scheduled for Saturday afternoon. Melissa spent the entire morning getting ready. She looked genuinely beautiful. For a brief second, I remembered the woman I'd fallen in love with. Then she asked me something that shattered the moment. "Can you bring the emergency envelope?" "What envelope?" "The one with the extra cash." I frowned. "What extra cash?" She stared at me. "The $5,000 in the safe." My stomach dropped. "What 5,000? She blinked. "You mean?" I walked to the bedroom closet and opened the safe. Empty. Except for passports and documents. I turned back to her. There was never $5,000 in there. Her face turned white. "You spent it?" "I never put money in there." For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then I realized what had happened. Melissa had planned to use money she thought was still available. Money she'd counted on without ever asking me. She had already spent so much that she'd lost track of what was left. She forced a shaky smile. It's fine. We don't need it." But for the first time since I'd discovered the missing savings, Melissa looked scared. Really scared. And something told me this was only the beginning. As we drove toward the wedding venue, her phone started ringing. Once. Twice. 3 times. She glanced at the screen, frowned, and declined every call. I caught one name before the screen went dark. First National Bank. She swallowed hard and turned the phone face down on her lap. "What?" I asked casually. "Oh, probably nothing." I nodded and kept driving. Deep down, I already knew. The bank had started asking questions. And before the reception was over, someone was going to have to answer them. By the time we reached the wedding venue, Melissa had ignored 7 calls from the bank. She kept telling herself they could wait until Monday. She was wrong. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Ashley walked down the aisle in the designer dress she'd insisted she saved for. The imported flowers lined every row. The string quartet played softly in the background. Every luxury she'd dreamed about was there. As I sat in the second row, all I could think was one thing. I paid for almost every inch of it. No one around me knew. Not yet. The ceremony ended without a problem. Guests applauded as Ashley and Mark kissed. Cocktail hour began, and everyone moved into the reception hall. Melissa finally checked her phone. Her smile disappeared instantly. She had 3 new voicemails. One email marked urgent. And another missed call from the bank's fraud department. She looked around to make sure no one was watching before stepping outside. I quietly followed, not close enough for her to notice, but close enough to see her reactions through the glass doors. She listened to the voicemail. Her shoulders stiffened. Then she called the number back. Even from a distance, I could tell the conversation wasn't going the way she expected. She kept shaking her head. No. No. There must be a mistake. A pause. I had access to the account. Another pause. It was our money. Another. I don't understand why you're investigating. She stopped talking. Her face drained of color. Finally she whispered something I couldn't hear before lowering the phone. For nearly a full minute, she just stood there. Frozen. When she returned inside, Ashley immediately noticed. Melissa? What's wrong? Nothing. You look sick. I'm fine. She wasn't. Throughout dinner she barely touched her food. Every few minutes she glanced toward me. I simply smiled whenever our eyes met. Not smugly. Calmly. The kind of calm that terrified guilty people. Then came the speeches. Ashley's father welcomed everyone. Mark thanked both families. Finally Ashley stood with a champagne glass. I wouldn't have this wedding without my sister. Guests applauded. Ashley continued. Melissa sacrificed so much to make today happen. I watched Melissa's expression change. For the first time all day. She didn't look proud. She looked panicked. Almost like she wanted Ashley to stop talking. Ashley didn't. She always told me family comes first. Another round of applause. Then Melissa's phone rang. Again. This time it echoed through the silent ballroom. She immediately silenced it. People laughed awkwardly. Ashley joked, even on my wedding day you can't escape work. Melissa forced a smile. It'll keep. It wouldn't. Half an hour later, while guests were dancing, Melissa pulled me aside. Did you report the transfers? I looked at her. What transfers? Ryan. What transfers, Melissa? Tears filled her eyes. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I know $12,000 disappeared from our savings. It wasn't stealing. Oh. It was temporary. Temporary? I was going to replace it. When? She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. I asked quietly. Before or after buying the imported flowers? She stared at me. You knew. I've known for weeks. You let me walk into this? I couldn't help laughing. No. I let the bank do its job. Her face crumpled. You ruined everything. I shook my head. No. You did that the day you decided our future meant less than your sister's wedding. Before she could answer, another voice interrupted. Melissa? It was Ashley. She had obviously heard enough to know something was terribly wrong. What is he talking about? Melissa stayed silent. Ashley looked at me. Ryan? I took a slow breath. I found out our joint savings paid for most of this wedding. Ashley laughed nervously. What? I have. The bank records. She looked at Melissa. Tell him he's wrong. Melissa didn't. Ashley looked from her sister to me several times. Then her face slowly changed. You told me. She swallowed. You told me you inherited that money from Grandma. Melissa closed her eyes. Ashley stepped backward. You lied to me? I was trying to help. You said Ryan knew. Silence. You said it was your money. More silence. The music continued in the ballroom while an entirely different kind of celebration collapsed in the hallway. Within minutes, Melissa's parents joined us. Her father demanded answers. Her mother insisted there had to be a misunderstanding. I handed her my phone. The account statements. The payment references. The voicemail from the wedding planner thanking Melissa for paying every vendor. No one spoke. Ashley burst into tears. Mark looked horrified. Finally Ashley whispered. "You stole from your own husband, for me?" Melissa started crying. I didn't think he'd notice. Those 6 words ended everything. Not because of the money. Because they proved it had all been intentional. No emergency. No misunderstanding. No accident. Just a calculated decision that I was too trusting to find out. The reception ended hours early. Guests noticed the arguing. Rumors spread almost immediately. People quietly collected their gifts and left. It wasn't the wedding Ashley had dreamed about. But it wasn't because of me. Truth has terrible timing. The following Monday, I moved out. My attorney filed for divorce that afternoon. Melissa spent weeks calling and texting. First she apologized. Then she blamed Ashley. Then she blamed her parents. Finally she blamed me for choosing money over marriage. I never answered. Because this had never been about money. It was about trust. And once trust is gone, every dollar in the world is worthless. Months later, the divorce was finalized. The court divided our remaining assets according to the law. Melissa also had to account for the missing funds during the financial proceedings, and the paper trail she'd created made denying what happened impossible. Ashley eventually contacted me. Not to ask for forgiveness. To apologize. She admitted she'd believed Melissa's story that the money came from a family inheritance and that I had happily agreed to help. She looked genuinely devastated when she learned the truth. I accepted the apology. She hadn't betrayed me. Melissa had. A year later, I finally bought a house. Not the dream home Melissa and I had planned. A smaller one. Nothing extravagant. But every payment came from money I had earned honestly, and every room felt peaceful. Sometimes friends ask if I regret letting the bank investigate. I always give the same answer. If I'd exposed her, she'd have spent years telling everyone I was a bitter husband making up stories. But bank statements don't have feelings. They don't lie. And that's the funniest part of the whole mess. Melissa spent weeks believing she had fooled me. In the end, I never had to tell her family what she'd done. The bank told them first. And unlike me, the bank came with receipts.